3, 2, 1. Before we get into today's episode, I want to remind you, if you like the episode, give it a like. And if you really like it, subscribe. Let's dive in. When I started this podcast, one of my main intentions was to have people on the show that I admired and respected. And I feel that there is no better way than to kick off season 4 than by having the co-owner of one of my favorite retailers in the world, Blue and Green. I'm incredibly excited and a bit nervous to invite Geoffrey Chorbajian. I knew I was gonna mess that up. I don't know if I said it right.
You said it right, man. That was perfect.
Beautiful, to the podcast. Geoffrey, man, how are you doing? How is Denver? How are things for you?
Everything's great, Drew. I appreciate it. I appreciate the intro and the kind words and all of your support. You've been really a tremendous help to Blue and Green in general, not just in Denver, but in
Yeah.
general. So happy
Yeah.
to be here.
I'm happy you're here. I could have never imagined. So my entry point to Blue and Green, I'll give you a little bit of context, Geoffrey. For me, I started getting into fashion, I would say around like pretty heavily around 6 years ago. So I'm 26 now. At the age of 20, I was finished playing basketball. I was big on sneakers. I love basketball sneakers, but I knew that I wanted to kind of evolve from being a guy who just cares about footwear to a guy who cares about his outfit, right? And YouTube, being a wonderful resource as it is, introduced me to a ton of people who obviously were on that same path or were kind of teaching men's fashion, teaching fashion. And one of the creators that I just loved and just watched all the time was this creator named Ray Mia. And Ray is someone who lives in the city, lives in New York City. I think he's from Queens. And he's the one who kind of introduced me to this world of Americana, Japanese fashion. He would come into the store, like I would watch his vlogs and be curious. Fast forward, in 2021, I came to visited New York City with my girlfriend. We met Ray. We visited Blue and Green for the first time, fell in love with the brand, fell in love with what you did. And ever since that first visit, it's been kind of just my dream or my vision for the future to embed myself somehow in the community that is what Blue and Green has to offer, man. So it's a huge honor and privilege to have you on this show. I really, really mean that. What I said in the intro is really, really true. We're gonna go over as much as we can today, but let's start with let's bring it back, because I think, obviously, if you're listening to this episode, maybe you know about Blue Green, maybe you don't, but I want to know about the man behind the entire business, right? And let's bring it back for you and start with your roots, your grassroots. Where are you from, and what was it like for you growing up as a kid?
All right, Drew. Thanks for that question. I'm originally from upstate New York, Albany, New York, to be specific. And growing up for me in Albany was great. I come from a great family, wonderful parents, older brother, two younger sisters, all very supportive and loving, typical family lifestyle. I was skateboarding was the first thing that really, grabbed my attention and really helped define who I was and who I was going to be. And I discovered that at a pretty young age.
So skateboarding, you grew up in a good family. Skateboarding was kind of something that you clinged on to. And, I know a couple skaters in my life. There's a whole aesthetic that's associated with skateboarding, right? Did the aesthetic of skateboarding, was that something that you're into as well? Like what is it about, I guess, or maybe what is it about skateboarding that drew you to it? Was it just like it was something you got good at pretty early on, like were you better than your siblings? Like what about skateboarding that stood out?
It was, it was the creativity and the independence of it. Just being able to go out into the streets and find something that was not intended to be skateboarded,
Yeah.
and turning it into your playground, for an hour.
Yeah.
Every other kid I knew, they'd go to a playground, they'd go to the basketball court, they'd go to the tennis court, a place that was designed for them, designed for their activity. And nowadays, skateboarding is much different. There's skateboarding parks everywhere you look. It's way more an accepted part of the norm.
Yeah.
The X Games and have helped tremendously. But back then, this is like, 80s and early 90s, skateboarders were still like punks. They were street kids. People didn't really like us. We didn't really belong.
Yeah.
But I kind of liked part of that. I
Yeah.
didn't like being part of normal
Yeah.
society and just doing what everyone else does and caving into, what you think you're supposed to do.
Right, right. That makes sense, and you're totally right. It makes me wonder though, because you'd mentioned that you had a good family upbringing, obviously. How did your family think of you if that was the association? You know what I mean? Because like obviously, you want your son or your daughter, whatever it may be, to live a fruitful life, whatever that is. Were they at all concerned for you or anything like that? Or was it, they knew they had a good son and they knew you weren't doing anything too mischievous. You were just a part of kind of this youth cultural movement, which was skateboarding.
My parents have always been supportive
Yeah.
since day one. My mom would drive me to the closest bus stop so I could take a bus to go to
Mm,
downtown Albany and skateboard. And then I'd go meet my dad at his office and he would drive me home.
mm, mm,
They every time they would go on vacation, if they saw something skateboarding related, they would buy it for me.
yeah.
Anytime I broke a board, they would replace it so that
Yeah.
I could always
Amazing.
be skateboarding.
Amazing.
I got arrested for skateboarding. My father was in a meeting when the phone in the boardroom rang, and it was someone saying, "Your son is in jail for skateboarding and you need
Mm,
to go and get him out." And he actually
mm,
had to adjourn a meeting
yeah.
to go bail his son out from
Yeah.
skateboarding. And
Yeah.
when he got there, the cop was like, "You really have a good kid, but you should really keep him off the skateboard or something like that." And my father's like, "Why? He's not doing anything wrong. He's not harming anybody. I'm surprised you're actually wasting your time and mine by bringing him into a police station when he's 15 years old
Right.
for riding on a curb."
Yeah.
So, as long as I was always respectful, like I didn't like swear at the cops or try to fight them or anything,
Yeah.
silly. My parents always supported me.
Yeah, and totally. So now I'm seeing the picture a lot more clearly now. It wasn't like you were a delinquent by any means, right? You were still a very respectful young man. You just enjoyed skateboarding. It was like your creative muse at the time. That was kind of like your in group at the time, which is pretty cool and pretty special, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. It it's interesting to hear your perspective as someone who has been able to see the evolution of skateboarding too over your years. I don't know, do you still skate now as much or not as much anymore?
Not so much. I wish I did. I still snowboard a lot, but I
Yeah.
don't skateboard as much. Skateboarding is a lot less forgiving on the
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. If you make mistakes while skateboarding, I remember being a young kid and I was never probably that big of a skater, but I always used to love like the Tony Hawks of the world and just envy people like that, people who were at my school, middle school, high school skating. Like there's a whole aura around being a skateboarder that um when I was a kid, it just felt like these people, these kids, like they just seem so cool. Like they're just on their boards, like whipping around, like get around faster. Like they're kind of a little bit edgy. They have like stickers everywhere on their stuff. Like it's just a whole different. It's a fun kind of energy and vibe that goes along with skateboarding.
And they dressed better.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Everyone they used to get all the girls. Like, I used to bother me. Like, why?
But I mean, we can get into this a little bit more later, but you know, even though I don't actively skateboard, I will
Mm,
always be a skater. It's
mm,
just like once you're a skater, you're a skater. It's in your blood, it's who you are. I can't walk around a city without looking at everything through the lens of a skateboarder.
yeah,
I point out a ledge and I show my daughter, oh, I used to grind ledges like that. Or, man, if I
yeah,
only had my skateboard 10 years ago, I'm always looking at
mm,
the city as a playground through that kind of lens.
yeah,
But skateboarding to me, it is like the core of all of this,
mm,
like the fashion, it all comes from skateboarding. And if you look at a lot of these designers, a lot of store owners, all of them skateboard. Like
mm,
they all, and regardless of your ability, skateboarding is one of those things. You don't have to be the best at it to get that the same kind of joy and satisfaction. I don't care what trick you're trying, whether it's down
yeah,
4 stairs or 14 stairs. When you try 10, 15 times and you're falling and hurting yourself, and then you finally pull it off in front of your friends and they're all
right,
screaming for you. That's just a great it's just a great feeling. It's hard to really explain it, but unless you've done it.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's amazing, man. It's so true though. You're 100% right. There are a lot of the most prominent brands in the world have their founders or their creative directors or whatever it may be, have skateboarding as the background, kind of in their background or a part of who they are, their ethos. And a lot of the most like prominent, streetwear, youth cultural, uh, just just cultural brands come from a skateboarding background, right? And that's so true.
Yeah, because
Um,
when you were skateboarding, part of skateboarding, like I said, you're like rebelling against society, against the norms. You're not doing
mm,
what everyone else is. Well, how you dress is part of that. You also don't want to
mm,
dress and look like everyone else. And so skate brands were the only brands making clothing different from Dockers or Bugle Boys or
yeah.
whatever dungarees, you could find in your local store. So, I mean, blind jeans were the first jeans that really I was obsessed with. Blind
Mm,
jeans. That really turned me on to denim in particular, but it all came from skateboarding. Like, and then the music comes from skateboarding, and the art comes from skateboarding, because you'd sit down, you'd watch a skate video, you'd see how someone dresses, you'd see the art, you'd hear the soundtrack. Like
mm,
it literally, like, just kind of everything that I am in
yeah.
life is comes from skateboarding,
Right. Right.
without a
And
doubt.
yeah, that's so cool. And like I said, it's been a minute since I've been on the pod, but I used to talk about, or since we've done the pod, but I used to talk all the time about how, skateboarding, like so many other genres within the world where you're doing an activity, it had, like you said, it has this kind of world building kind of barrier around it, right? Where you have music, you have food, you have fashion, you have all these things that make a culture. And yeah, it's just so true that there's so much that comes from skateboarding. There's so much the fashion world owes to skateboarding, and it seems like you're also a derivative of that as well. But you say that everything is coming from skateboarding, but when I remember, and it's good. I'm learning as we're going, guys, and just like Jeffrey's learning about me, I'm learning about him. This is really interesting. When we talked in Denver, when you opened the store in Denver, Lauren and I were there. I remember just getting a distinct, keen feeling that you were also someone who was big on, and this is kind of like a weird segue, but someone who was big on Godzilla. All right. And I'm curious to know because like it stood out to me, like in the shop in Denver, like there's a lot of Godzilla. And if you don't know, everyone should know Godzilla. If you don't know Godzilla, you should know Godzilla, okay? Like you should know what that is. But I'm curious to know like where does that come in too? Because I feel like obviously skateboarding it probably had a bigger, more profound effect. But obviously, as a someone who also likes to embed a bit of their personality into what blue and green is, I see a lot of kind of that Japanese. Obviously, Godzilla is Japanese, but like Godzilla, where does Godzilla come from? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I mean, Godzilla it's a very separate thing from everything else in my life. Even
Got it.
though it's Japanese and a lot of the other stuff I'm into is Japanese, there's no correlation. In fact, a lot of the brands we carry, they every once in a while will do like a Godzilla denim or like a jacket with artwork on it, and people
Yeah.
think I'm going to jump all over that, but that's
Mm,
just I keep Godzilla separate,
got it.
from all that. But I grew up in upstate New York.
Yeah.
We had a local television station there, WSPK TV,
Mm,
and we picked it up from Boston, and they had a creature double feature Saturday morning, and every Saturday morning they would show a double feature of monster or horror movies.
yeah.
And Dracula and those other guys, they were okay to me, but man, when Godzilla would come on, it was just a whole different monster, like no pun intended.
Literally.
And I loved everything about him. I just loved how he moved. I loved how each movie had a different suit. He had different personalities,
Mm,
and he always represented something. Like, the Godzilla stories they're much more than just, a couple guys in rubber suits battling over a model set. There was always, Godzilla and all the different monsters and stories. It was always sort of like punishment to man for something. Godzilla
mm,
is punishment to man for creating nuclear weapons.
mm.
Hedorah, better known as the smog monster in the US, right? He was the result of pollution, right? Stop polluting our waters, because what happens? You create this monster and now he's going to come and destroy you. There was a
Right.
lot of science involved in Godzilla. It wasn't just these goofy, funny, fun movies. There was actually some cool, interesting underlying meanings to him, and
Right.
that's what I enjoyed about Godzilla. I mean, he's a very misunderstood individual.
Yeah.
Everyone just looks at him as he's just coming here to destroy everything. But a lot of times he's the savior.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
a lot of the times he's just coming back to say, hey, you're screwing up the planet. Look what you
Right.
did here. Look what you did there. Look what you've created. Now I got to come back and, and try to make things right
And fix it, right? And
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 fix
and
it.
do
Yeah.
justice by it. There, I've never really evaluated it like that because I like Godzilla. Like I remember as a kid watching it, I wrote down that for me it was a 1998 film. But you're so right. There's almost like a core value that if you aren't paying attention, because when for me at least, when you watch Godzilla, when you see Godzilla, especially the modern renditions of it, like the CGI and the cinematography, it's very jarring and impressive, right? To see this massive lizard uh in roaming the streets of Tokyo or New York or whatever city they're in, swimming in the ocean. But like you said, once you kind of strip back what it means, like why Godzilla exists, it make like there are some things where you're like, yeah, maybe we should, like maybe this is a result of the fact that we aren't doing the things we need to do, right? Like with pollution or with nuclear energy or nuclear weapons, whatever it may be. So I actually really appreciate you kind of explaining that, because from a surface value standpoint, it would be like, oh, it's just a dude who likes monsters tearing up shit. But and then reality, it goes beyond that, and it goes to something that has a meaning that you can still play on as an adult and kind of influence within your own community, within your own business, right?
Right. But it's still a monster. There's still toys, and
Yeah,
it can still be fun, and you can still be a kid with it too.
absolutely.
Like it's great.
Yeah, definitely. So you would say there's no real correlation necessarily between Godzilla and your affinity for Japan. That's really interesting. Wow. That's so cool, actually. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was I mean, I got into Godzilla young, very
Uh,
young. I used to
yeah.
watch it we used to go to my grandparents' house
Mm,
for Thanksgiving.
yeah.
And Thanksgiving they'd always have these Godzilla marathons, and I would sit downstairs and just watch them
Mm.
the whole time from a very, very young age, even before I was probably on a skateboard.
Yeah. So
Godzilla.
Godzilla just gripped you, right? It was just something that for whatever reason, like obviously when you're a kid, maybe you're thinking about some of these things, but also you're just thinking about how cool it is too, right? It's just,
It
damn, this
was
is
straight up
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Because when I was getting into it back then, there weren't a lot of toys,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like I had a lot of figures or I could collect that. It was just the movies. That's all
Mm,
you had.
mm,
And I loved him. And then, he kind of fell out of my life for a little bit when I got into college, in the early 90s. I was in Boston,
mm,
and, I was so into skateboarding at the time and hardcore music. Like they were my life. So every dollar I had went to skateboarding or music.
mm.
But there was this little Japanese toy store in Boston upstairs from a Newberry Comics. And I would go in there once in a while and I would see all these like Japanese import Godzilla films. I'd be like, they're
Mm.
still making movies? Like, what? And then they had some of the figures, and I was like, oh, this is like a whole different world
Yeah.
of Godzilla than I was used to as like a real young kid.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it was like, yeah, but I gotta skateboarding and the hardcore music were a little bit more of a priority at the time.
Yeah.
And then after I graduated college and moved to New York, everything changed. I mean, because in New York, you have Toy Tokyo, you have places you can just go into that are just overflowing with stuff like that. And it just
Right.
became very easy to become a collector. You go to Tower Records and there's a Godzilla section in the DVDs that had 25, DVDs sitting there
Mm.
waiting for you. So like
Yeah.
everything else, as time evolved, it became much more, you know, acceptable.
Yeah, for sure. And it takes a special kind of person to be a collector at a young age, anyways. When you're young, you just don't have the room, you don't have the bandwidth to start collecting memorabilia of something that you
No,
care about. And it makes sense. Like it changed for you from a kid to an adult. And obviously, like I can imagine there probably was a shift where, okay, I have the disposable income. Now I can revisit some of these like childlike fond memories that I have of this caricature and pop culture and really embrace it. And you probably can even see and recognize, and you kind of alluded to this being in New York, but you can see and recognize the different like way that taste works with some of these things, right? Meaning that, when you're a kid, like when I was a kid, I loved like for me it was like Spider-Man. Like I love Marvel, I love Spider-Man in particular, right? Um and as a kid, like maybe I had like my favorite Spider-Man movie, like lines on repeat, went through high school, went through college, your priorities change, right? You're kind of you have to kind of put away those childlike fantasies, those childlike things that you care about a little bit to focus on what your actual future is going to be. Because you can't be a video game, Godzilla nerd as a profession. At least you think you can, right? For the most part. And you know, looking at it from a standpoint of like comparing taste levels, now there are people who obviously also love and respect and obsessed with Godzilla, and they have created product that's associated with that obsession that's in line with kind of a more adult level of taste, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
um
totally.
and it seems like you've kind of harnessed that. And when I walk into when last time I was in blue and green in Denver, you guys have probably changed things around a little bit as I've kind of seen on Instagram, but like it seems like you guys have not only tapped into your interest in that, but maybe other staff members as well, but it's done tastefully, which is really cool as well. um
Yeah, I knew when I was planning the store that Godzilla would be a part of it. I
yeah,
mean, it has nothing to do with, selling Japanese denim, and he's from Japan. I mean, that's just kind of obvious and corny.
yeah, of
But
course.
I knew he'd be part of the store because, I wanted a little bit of my personality in there.
Yeah,
And he's a part of my personality. And I think he looks really cool.
yeah.
And it's been a great conversation starter. I mean, a lot of people come in, they take selfies with it, or they take pictures, or they ask questions, or is it for sale, or
Mm.
so. And my wife likes it because now there's that many less taking over our home. Now when I get a new
uh
Godzilla in the mail, the first thing she says is take it to the
Put
store.
it in the store.
Put it this same thing with art. Some people think I opened a store just to have a place to hang more art and Godzilla figures, and selling denim is just second.
That's funny. That's really, really funny. I have here that, I wanted to kind of understand your timeline a bit more, and I think I do. Um, Tell me if I'm wrong anywhere, and then we can start talking about denim and actually what blue and green, what that is, right? So, young kid, grew up in Albany, upstate. Family was a family that was a together family. You always had support from from your parents. Seems like you had good relationship with your siblings, and you kind of grasped onto skateboarding, right? In addition to that, obviously, you watched and consumed television, as television was one of the things that literally before social media and the internet, we watch TV on Saturdays, we watch TV with our friends, with our family, whatever it is. And those programs, whatever they were, they got to us and they left an impression on us. For you, that was Godzilla, right? You went to school in Boston, and after you went to New York, and kind of like pick up where I am right now. How did you kind of start getting into the mode, which is blue and green, start getting into the realm of denim? Obviously, it seems like skateboarding also was something that helped you get into fashion, but Japanese denim, Japanese clothing, Japanese fashion, what is the kind of starting point for that part of the story?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been into fashion. Like I said, it stemmed from skateboarding. Even like the hardcore scene, like there's like fashion, hip hop. I mean, it's
Mm,
fashion's a big part of all of those subcultures. So
mm,
fashion was always important to me. And jeans were always and are still my favorite item of clothing. I just love a pair of jeans. And I think jeans just go perfectly with everything you could ever wear.
mm,
Sneakers, loafers, boots, sandals, barefoot,
mm,
t-shirts, button downs, flannels, chambrays, jackets. Just a pair of jeans, it's just great. It's just the most staple piece of clothing. It's a great foundation for building your outfit. Like I said, with skateboarding, jeans were always a huge thing. So denim was always my thing. And then, as you get older and you move out of skateboarding, like the baggy, oversized look, like, I'm like, well, I'm in my late 20s now, and I'm kind of a little bit more professional, and I don't
mm,
want such loose clothing or such graphic heavy clothing. So I was trying to seek out brands that were doing things a little bit more cleanly,
mm,
but still not like your typical, mainstream, clothing items. And then, there was a brand called We, WESC. We are the superlative conspiracy.
Mm.
And I believe they're like a Swedish brand, or they're from Switzerland.
Hmm.
And my favorite skateboarder of all time, Jason Lee, turned actor, was someone who was sponsored by them. I don't know if he was involved in helping them get off the ground, but he was always wearing their clothing, and I always loved the way their jeans looked.
Mm.
They were a little cleaner, not so baggy. I like the real dark look of raw denim. And not long after I started to discover that brand, a store opened in New York.
No
And it
way.
was right around that time I started hearing about the term selvage. Okay. Because Blue and Green had just opened. This is like, spring of 2006. So the word selvage is now kind of buzzing around. And I went into their store, and they had two different jeans, and one was X number of dollars and the other one was double that. And that was the selvage pair. And I was like, well, what makes that so special? Feel this, look at this. He showed me what the selvage line looks like on the cuff. And I was like, wow, all that makes it that much more money. He's like, oh, yeah, this is really special jean, but it kind of had a wash to it. It wasn't completely raw.
Right.
And so I got it, and I just loved the way they felt. They were just really, really comfortable. And I liked the way the selvage line looked.
Mm.
I liked the way they felt. And then, I mean, I would say, within a month or two of that, I was reading about Blue and Green in the New York Times.
Really?
And I was like, okay, now like this is like a whole different level of selvage denim. This is Japanese selvage denim, which is supposed
Mm.
to be like the best of the best. And so I just decided one day to make a trip to Blue and Green, and it literally changed my life. I walked in the door. I
Amazing.
had no idea. I'd never heard of a single brand. I knew nothing. I'd only
Where
heard the term. Go ahead.
No, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to cut you off at all. I was curious to know, where was the Blue and Green that you walked into? Is it the same in the same location as the one that it is today?
Yeah, it was just the initial storefront. So that
Wow.
whole back room was a townhouse when
Interesting.
Blue and Green first opened. There was like people living back there.
Yeah.
So no, that wasn't until after um, many years after Blue and Green tried to open a real McCoy store, and
Mm.
that did not work out. And then when that didn't work out, they decided they wanted to really focus on expanding Blue and Green and taking over that back room and really blowing things up, so to say.
Amazing, amazing. So yeah, keep going. I feel like I cut you off at the wrong time. I'm sorry, audience, if you're listening. You're like, Drew, why'd you ask a question? You were telling me you walked into Blue and Green, and after the New York Times article, you were kind of just like the golden lights hit you. You know what I'm saying? You're walking
Yeah,
into the
it was
Golden Gates.
it was interesting. I'd actually just hit a tree snowboarding. I was in Colorado, and I had a really horrible accident.
Oh
And so I
God.
was on disability,
Mm.
and to the point of where my company was like, you can't come into work, until you're off crutches. We don't, you're a risk. We don't need you slipping on the way to the copier and suing us. So I was like, okay. So I was stuck home.
Mm.
And if you've ever been stuck home in an apartment in Brooklyn in the winter, you really feel claustrophobic,
Yep.
And so I just jumped in a cab like almost every day and went to Blue and Green, and I would just hang out in there. And there was a woman there named Noriko. I'll never forget her. And I believe she's still in contact with my partner. I think my partner's wife and her are friends.
Mm.
And she explained everything to me. She was like an encyclopedia of Japanese denim. She explained
Mm.
all the different cuts, all the numbers, 5,000 versus 510 versus 500 versus
Mm.
710, and all the different weights, and like the rivets, the terminology, natural indigo. Like she just, each day was a different tutorial, and you just look, you didn't need to buy something every time, like they knew you weren't going to come in there and buy something, but they just wanted to make sure you were educated, and
Yeah.
you knew what this clothing was about, so that when you were ready to make a decision, it was a well-informed decision. I mean, I remember I went in there, and I thought I knew everything about jeans, and I see a pair of natural indigo jeans, and they were even twice as much as what I thought. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Mm.
And these jeans actually came with like an owner's manual to
Mm.
explain how they were dyed and what makes it this. And it was like a letter of authenticity with it. And I was just like, it was the coolest thing in the world. And I bought those jeans on site, but it wasn't because it was because they took the time to educate me. They didn't tell me, well, if you don't know, you don't know. It wasn't one of those kinds of lines. It
Right.
was like, you don't know, but we're going to help you
Yeah.
to understand. Like
Yeah.
they understood when they opened that they were an extremely niche store, and that they were going to have to really sell this world, this
Yeah.
culture to a lot of people. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to come in. It's jeans, Drew. Okay. We all have a pair of jeans. Even
Yep.
people who hate jeans have a pair of jeans. Okay. So when you're talking about jeans, everyone can relate. It's not something that, well, I don't wear those, I don't wear that. It's like jeans. Everyone wears a pair of jeans. And so
Yeah.
they knew that the only way you're going to get people to buy into this, to become obsessed with denim, is to take your time and educate them,
Yep.
and
Yep.
answer questions and be there for them.
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the things that I love about the kind of what I call denim head or denim dude, denim gal community, right? Is where in a lot of other spaces, I mean, and we're talking about a different time period, but even still, it still reverberates in today, where there's a very kind of posh, if you know mentality that very much so exists in fashion. And I knew that I would love and appreciate kind of the denim communities, Japanese selvage denim community, raw denim community. When I found out, when you go to stores and you are curious about, what makes this denim special, how do I wear this? How do I actually take care of my jeans? How do I do X, Y, and Z with my denim? And people are willing to explain it to you in detail. Like there's a certain sincerity that comes along with that. And I think Blue and Green has cultivated that. And obviously, if they started with you back in 2006, 2007, 2008, whatever it was, you were there, it's continued. And that's a huge reason why the business has been able to grow and exist through all the years that it has, right? Which is
Yeah.
powerful and beautiful altogether. I have so many questions I want to throw at you. So
I
many
can answer
questions.
what you want.
Um,
But just to your point, one side,
yeah, you're good.
you're exactly right. They call it, what do they say, pay it forward. That's what I feel like when someone comes into my store.
Yeah.
I love. We had a guy today. We've had a few people like this. They come
Mhm.
in, they really want a pair of jeans. Um, one thing that one thing that really bothers me is when people feel insecure trying on this clothing. Okay, this stuff is not made for everybody. The fits are not for everybody. Certain styles are not for you. So if something doesn't fit you right, it's just not for you. But a lot of people, they kind of feel, oh, I'm too fat for these, or I gotta go on a diet. That stuff breaks my heart. Like, don't come into my store, please, and ever beat up yourself. Just that's just not for you. There's plenty of things I wish I could wear in my store that I can't. That
Mm,
I see people try on. I'm like, man, you look great. I wish I could look like. That's just how it is. You just need to find, what works for you, what you're most comfortable in. Define your own style.
yeah.
You don't let somebody else do it. And so guys, I want to try on a pair of jeans. Oh, yeah, my ass is kind of big, or my hips. I have a hard time getting it over this, or did
Right.
it.
Right.
All these things in the world, and try on this pair, and try on that, and then you go this pair, and they come out like, what else do you got for me? And then you're like, okay, you're pulling this. Then they're in the dressing room, and while they're in there, you're pulling this and you're pulling that. And then eventually, after like an hour and like 13 jeans, they come out and they're holding it up like a trophy. Like,
Yeah.
this is the one.
Mhm.
This is the pair. Like, they could just tell it, almost like the jeans said to them, yes, almost like a green light went off as they pulled it up. Like every other pair, just a little hard getting over my knees, a little too wide in the leg, a little too much room here. But when it's the right pair, it just fits so well. It's the
Beautiful
fits,
moment.
it's the fit more than anything. Like, people look at fabrics, and you want to try to make some things work, but if the fit is not there, it's just going to die in your closet.
Yeah.
So like, you really got to get that fit. And when people do, it's great. And then the other thing I hate is when they apologize. Sorry for making you spend so much time. Sorry for making you pull out all those jeans, because like at the end of their visit, there's like a pile of jeans on the table. And I'm like, no, and we literally, no, not a, don't ever. This is what we're here for. These
Right.
are not easy decisions.
Right.
Okay, buying a pair of these jeans, it's not cheap.
It's an
You know,
investment.
you it's an investment. You want it to last a long time. You want to wear them a long time. So
Yep.
I want people to walk out of my store feeling so happy with what
Yeah.
they got, because it's them feeling happy. They will wear it a lot. Then they're going to want to come back and A, support you, and B, be like, what else do you got? What else
Exactly.
do you have to make me feel like this? Whereas
Exactly.
if you send them off with something that maybe they didn't like, they felt pressured into getting, doesn't fit right, that you'll never see them again. They're gonna be, I can't believe I spent $300 on these jeans. They're just gonna sit in my closet forever. Those guys just like they forced me into it. I really didn't want to buy. Like, I don't want anyone to ever leave there. I'd rather you
Yeah.
leave and not get something and come back another day, get in the trenches with us, and let's try some more stuff on.
A
You know,
thousand percent.
we are like we. You know, I like to believe that I have a pair of jeans for everybody. Okay, anyone in the world comes into my store, and we're going to find a pair of jeans for you. Whether you buy them or not, or you want them, that's a different story. But we're going to find a pair of jeans that you're going to be like, okay,
Mm.
if I were to get a pair, this is it. This feels right. You know, and so you just got to be willing to take the time and walk people through it, educate them. You know, a lot of people come. This is Denver too.
Mm.
So, and I'm not being critical, like the shop, you don't have as many professional in-store shoppers here, like you do in New York or whatever.
Yep.
Most of the professional shoppers here are professional online shoppers.
Yep.
So they're still guessing. You know, I have people that have come into this store who've been buying denim for 10 years, but never in person. And they're realizing they've been buying the wrong size,
Yep.
you know, because now they're getting to try it on. They're like, whoa, this actually fits great. Even though they can get away with the other one, this is actually, you know, their
It's better.
size. So, you
Yeah.
know, I tell my staff in New York, Denver, wherever, I say the same thing. Like, I don't care who they are. When they come into our store, they are the king and the queen. You treat them like such. You spend as much time on them. You're as patient as you can be. You
Yep.
answer every question. And if they walk out with nothing, you say, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming by. We hope to see you again.
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, I've seen a million times. I've seen people come in, they try on 4 or 5 things, they buy nothing. They come back next week to buy the jeans. 2 weeks, they buy the shirt. 3 weeks, they buy the jacket. And that's just kind of how it is. Sometimes you need to kind of come in, try on a few things, be like, okay, this is my fit. Now I need to go and think about it. You know, it's
Yeah.
not, you know, I remember when we were looking for a space here in Denver, everyone was trying to push us in. Like Cherry Creek was a
Mm.
popular place. People were, and I'm like, why Cherry Creek? Oh, that's where the rich people are. That's where all the money is. And I looked on your website and you got expensive clothing. And I was like, yeah, but if you've ever been in our New York store, you would see it's not like a, I mean, yes, you have to have some money, or, but it's not like, you know, these incredibly, you know, wealthy individuals coming in and dropping all this. I mean, of course, you're
Correct.
going to find those people out there. It's people who just really care about the clothing and their style and they're into it. And this is what they choose to spend their money on. So they're going
Correct.
to come in and they're going to try on that jacket and they're going to say, that jacket is perfect, but it's $800 and I only have 400 now. I need to figure out how to get the other 400 because I want to get that jacket. They're gonna figure out a way to get that jacket because it means something to them. So,
Yep.
you know, like you just got to take your time with these people. And again, like sometimes it's the stories or the education that sells them on it.
Yeah. And there's so much you just said there too that for me, I mean, when I came into the store in 2021, that's exactly what I felt is that, I could just come to the store in Soho. I could come in, I could talk, I could ask questions, and I didn't have to be someone who knew everything about the product in here, right? It felt amazing to have people, showing me, oh, this is the view from the mezzanine, and we have this brand, that brand, that brand. And it just felt really endearing. And I'm glad that that's also something that's taking place in Denver. Obviously, you're making sure it's taking place in Denver. It's good. I'll always have a soft spot. Denver is where I was from, where I'm born and raised. So it's beautiful to hear that. Also, Jeffrey, I think it's important that you highlighted. This is something I talk about on my channels a lot, which is, you know, figuring out what your sizing is. It is a task in and of itself because a lot of times, we go throughout our lives, and for some people, fashion means a lot. For some people, fashion is a necessity, meaning that you have to have clothes for school, you have to have clothes for job, you have to have clothes for meeting your girlfriend's parents, whatever it may be, right? And you don't necessarily go to the department store or whatever store you're buying from, online retailer, thinking, I'm looking to buy the thing that will be the perfect fit for me. For most people, it's just, I'm looking to buy the thing that works in this situation. And so that I don't look out of place when I'm in that situation. Right. And so when you do have someone, like, whether they're young or old, who wants to or is learning about something like Japanese selvedge denim or a Japanese brand, whatever it may be, and they're curious about it, but they try it on and they're like, damn, I thought my size was this, and this does not fit at all. This does not work at all. And you walk them through the process that you went through, 13 pairs of jeans, trying on different things, and they finally find that perfect size. It does take a little bit of work to actually figure out what is your right size. And I think, if you're taller, there's a particular range of pieces that's going to work better with you. If you have a wider leg or a wider bust, it's going to work better for you. What Jeffrey just described is a perfect example of, maybe if you're listening to this, like, go into a store and just have yourself be playful with pieces that you're interested in, because that's the only way you're actually going to learn to actually find the perfect size for yourself, right? That's something that I've had to do several times. And obviously, as someone who's inundated themselves in this world, like, Blue and Green is like been an invaluable resource for finding good sizing and finding perfect sizing. So it's never easy. Like,
Well, you got to remember
realizing,
something.
yeah,
I tell people this all the time. The difference in the sizing is not so radical that you couldn't wear it. You know, you can usually wear one of two to even three sizes in something. If you're a 33 waist, you could probably wear the 33s. You might be able to wear the 34s. You might be able to wear the 32s.
yep,
You're not going to know until you try them on. And then again, what kind of fit are you going for? How do you wear your jeans? How do you wear your shirts? How do you wear your we always ask these questions. I tell my staff, you're indirectly like a stylist. We're not the dollar store. Okay. People aren't going to look at us as like pushy salespeople.
mm,
Like, most of them are looking for you to take their hand and walk them through some of this stuff. And so we always try to encourage people, please come out of the dressing room, like, as much as you're comfortable. I don't like when someone goes into my dressing room with like 10 things and they come out and they're just back dressed to normal. And they just throw it all at us and say, yeah, none of this worked. And
yeah,
it's like, maybe none of it worked, but like, why? Like,
yeah,
let's take a look at it. Let's learn from what you tried on. And like, you can tell me what doesn't work, and then I'll kind of tell you, okay, well then now we know you should stay away from this, or you should focus more on that. Like, we can help you. We can help you kind of create your own style, almost, in a sense, by just kind of asking some of those questions. Do you wear sneakers with your jeans? Do you wear boots? Do you want a big cuff? Do you want no cuff? Are you like, do you want to wear your jeans with a nice shirt always tucked in?
right,
There's so many questions that I like to ask a customer, a prospective customer, before putting them in something, because there's so many options.
yeah,
Like, are you going to wear something as a layering piece or as your main piece?
right,
Because that'll determine what size you want. Like, in department store clothing, if you go from large to an extra large, it's like, forget it, or, the large is perfect, extra large is swimming, the medium doesn't even get over your belly.
exactly,
The sizes are so radical that you really are just one size. But in this clothing, you can literally move around, move up or move down, depending on the fit, depending on how much a jean might stretch. That
correct,
might, determine things. So anyway, so again, like I said, I try to look at myself as a stylist in a way, and I tell my staff to think of themselves as that. And so, like, don't be afraid to ask people questions. A lot. I mean, in our store, I think people are starving for this kind of information,
yeah,
especially in a place like Denver, where most of the people coming in have never been into a store like that.
yeah, for
But I
sure,
mean, most. I mean, I would say, man, maybe 80% of the customers so far are coming into a store like ours for the first time ever. Now, I'm not saying they're all buying jeans for the first time, but it's always been online, or whatever. It's the first time they're coming in and seeing some of these brands in person, or
yes,
feeling some of these fabrics, or looking at those jackets. And, it's like, so, and the other things too, most people are very patient. I tell my staff, that's the other thing. Like, everyone deserves our full attention. If the store is very crowded and people are coming, always say hello. I'll be with you in a second. Most of the customers that come into Blue and Green are patient. They're not in a rush.
right,
They don't mind. They see you're taking a lot of time with someone. They appreciate that you're going to take the same amount of time with them when their time is up. It's just, like I said, customer service is, it's the one place there's no waiting.
yeah,
Like, it's got to be bulletproof.
for sure. And that's, I mean, anyone will tell you, if you feel good in a store, then it's a huge step into actually buying something in that store. It's a huge step. Any customer will tell you that, right? So
Yeah,
Um,
when people come into this Denver store and they're like, "Yeah, I was in a New York store," and they're like, "Man, it's so cool. Garvey helped me out, or Victoria was so nice to me," or
yeah,
that makes me feel good. Like the fact that you remember that and you're
yeah,
coming all the way here to Denver to share that with
yeah.
us, like that means a lot. And people will tell you when they go into other stores and are not treated
Correct.
very well
I mean,
or are
you
kind
remember
of,
those things, right? I mean, you
yeah,
remember a negative stroke very, very powerfully compared to, if someone treats you kindly, like it's also going to stand out to you, especially in a place like New York and Denver, also especially in a place like Denver as well. I
you
wanted
want
to
to build
ask
up
you,
store. Sorry, but like one
no, you're
last thing.
good.
Sorry, but you want to build up store loyalty.
Yeah.
Like when Blue and Green opened, we were the only store of our kind.
Mm.
Like loyalty wasn't an issue. People were lining up to buy jeans from us because it was the only place you could do it. There
Yeah.
was, like that's just how it is. But it's not like that anymore. There's a lot. I mean, look in New York, you got Self Edge,
Yep.
Standard and Strange,
Yep.
and Blue and Green. They're like a triangle.
Yep.
Now if you're a shopper, that's the greatest thing in the world. I try not to look at it as competition like some people do. I try not to. We're still a very niche industry.
Yep.
Okay. There still are not a lot of stores like us in the world,
Mm.
and even less in the US, and for shoppers to have that opportunity, it's so great. I mean, when I left New York, there weren't even that many stores.
Yeah.
Like I'd go to like a few, now like to be able to hit up I think that's great for the customer. And, we all have our own loyal customer base. Okay. But there's no doubt that, the Standard and Strange loyalists aren't going to come to Blue and Green when it's right down the road. And why
Right.
shouldn't they? And why
Right.
shouldn't we send people up to Self Edge?
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking for Flathead too? We got Oni, but you want Flathead? Go there. I mean, we should all be, I mean, again, maybe this is me just being naive, but I just feel like there should be more partnerships, more working together. And maybe it's a little harder in New York.
Oh, interesting.
Here in Denver, like, Berkeley Supply and
Yeah.
Eli, they've been a
Yeah.
huge help, very
Yeah.
supportive. It's how it should be. When we all we do is send people back and forth
Yeah.
to each other's stores.
Yep.
Like that's just all we do.
Yep.
And it means the world to me, that Eli has been so welcoming and supportive, and we are from them. And
Yeah.
like I said, I just feel like there's just still not enough of us. We're still a minority,
Yeah.
these
Of
types of
course.
stores,
Yeah.
and we should be, there should be more kind of collaborative working, you know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you bring that up. We could go down the whole rabbit hole with
I know.
that because I would be curious to pick your brain about it. Maybe my 2 cents, I don't know, in New York, there's a different kind of mentality where it maybe a more cutthroat place than Colorado is just in general. Maybe that has to do with it. Maybe it's your friends are really your enemies in disguise kind of thing. And while as much as some of the brands that you mentioned want to see you do well, in reality, if they could have your business, they would eat it and the other person's lunch too. So and maybe in Denver it's like we're hoping to build something here, right? Because it's still a place that's unlike New York, unlike places like Los Angeles or places like Vegas or whatever they are that have kind of this international pull. Denver is still trying to build that up. And if Berkeley Supply or Blue and Green or whatever those stores are in Denver are trying to do that, like there is a kind of camaraderie to that. But that's a conversation for another day. But that's my 2 cents on the matter. And it's good. You started talking about some of the brands that Blue and Green carries, and maybe not. You start talking about some of the brands that Blue and Green carries, right? I'm kind of curious to hear from what's happening in Denver, what happened in Soho, but just in general too. Like, what are some of the more popular denim brands that you guys carry? The things that people are coming in looking for, asking about, shopping about, knowing about. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, in terms of brand, it's hard to ignore Capital,
Yeah.
in New York. It is, I mean, we've had Capital for 17 years. And up until maybe 5 years ago, I feel like people didn't pay as much attention to Capital. Something has happened in the last 5 years. I mean, the celebrities getting a hold of it obviously helps,
Yeah.
but it's its own animal. And it is the bread and butter, of the New York store for
Yeah.
sure. I can't argue with that. And most people come into that store looking for it. We get a lot of people that come into Denver asking about it. Oh,
Mm.
well, you have it in New York. Do you have it here? But outside of Capital and in Denver specifically, Oni. I would say Oni has
Mm,
been probably the most popular denim brand. Um, people like the uniqueness of Oni. They love the fabrics, the heavy weight, the slub, the nep,
secret.
the discomfort. Like wow, like they just. It's almost like when they come in and they're looking to buy a new pair of jeans, a first pair of jeans. They don't want something that looks like something that they're used to wearing or something that
Hmm.
might be already in their closet. They want something that's going to be like people are going to be like, "What are those?"
Hmm.
And Oni checks off all those boxes. I mean, there's no one who pushes the boundaries of fabric, in my opinion, like Oishi-san. I mean, he's really really good at it, and people gravitate to that. Um, One brand that's really been popular in Denver has been Mountain Research,
Oh, right.
non-denim brand.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a, I, we've talked so much about denim
Yeah, I know. There's so
that
much more we could talk about.
that and Blue and Green will always be a denim store.
Yeah.
At its roots and foundation, it'll always be a denim store. I wanted the Denver store to be a little bit more like old school Blue and Green. Like when Blue and Green opened, it was a denim authority. It was where everyone came for all things denim, whether it was buying it or learning about it, etc.
Right.
We're opening here in a new market. I knew denim was going to be obviously the big draw when we first opened. So I really wanted to make sure that when we did open that we were stocked with jeans. We have, I think, like 70 different pairs right now and more constantly coming. But it's not just about jeans. As I said, the jeans are like the foundation of your outfit.
Yeah.
And it's all about those other things you build around it. And I'm a big streetwear guy too. I can't lie.
Mm,
When I was younger, Double Taps, Visvim, Neighborhood, like I was into the more streetwear stuff. And I just feel like it goes really well with the denim,
mm.
and I feel like the scenes get like every other scene, they get too stereotyped and pigeonholed. And it's like, if you're going to wear capital, you got to wear capital head to toe. If you're
Mm.
going to wear acronym, you got to wear acronym head to toe. If you're going to wear denim, it's got to be the chambray and the jean jacket and the boot. Like, there's too much of that. Like, there's no right or wrong way to wear anything. And that's what I like to be able to offer at Blue and Green. We offer outfits. Okay, you come to Blue and Green and you can leave with a full outfit from feet to head, and all kinds of outfits. And we love to blend and mix brands. Okay. And
Yeah.
Mountain Research is a brand that everything about them just reeks of Colorado. And we've sold a ton of their stuff. And I don't think one of the things we've sold has been to someone who knew who Mountain Research was. They were all
Really.
discovering it in our store for the first time, which makes me feel good because to me, that's what Blue and Green was all about. Like you came there for the denim. The denim was what drew you there. But when you were there, you learned about other clothes. You
Right.
come out of that dressing room with a pair of jeans on, and I see it here. And you're just walking around, and you're kind of feeling how the jeans are, but you're strumming through the shirts and the jackets. You're like, oh, that's a cool jacket. What is that? 10C. I've never heard of that brand. And then now I'm engaging you. Oh, let me tell you about 10C. And
Mm.
now you put on your 10C jacket with those jeans, and it's like, wow, that looks really good. And we got a great hat that goes with that. And here's a nice sweat. It's like we want to be able to offer outfits,
Right.
like outfits that really represent how people dress and what they wear. Because you look at a lot of lookbooks, they're very intimidating. Like people, I feel like Capital is like such a misunderstood brand, for example. Like there's so many people out there who want Capital, who want to try it, who want to wear pieces from it, but they're not sure where they fit. Like, I don't know what I would wear. Like every time I see people in Capital, it's so bohemian. It's so
Yeah.
like, like hippie looking. It's like these giant coats with skeleton bones and eyes smiley, like I don't want that, and I have a ton of Capital pieces in my wardrobe, and not none of them have any branding that would make you think it's Capital. And like
Capital. Yeah.
I try to show people like that. Like you love denim shirts, you love chambrays. Capital makes one of the best pure denim shirts I own. There's
Mm.
no bones, there's no smiley faces, there's no patchwork, there's nothing. It's just a beautiful, clean, classic denim shirt. But people, they think of Capital, they think of all this crazy pop culture, color, unique branding stuff. And there's a lot more to it. So like, to me, like I want to kind of like merge the brands, like merge the labels, merge the fashion. Like that to me is really important. That's why, when we do lookbooks, I want to always blend labels. Like you can never just be focused. If you're doing like a lookbook for a brand, that's one thing. But when you're doing it, like show how people might really wear an outfit.
Yeah.
Don't show like a $10,000 outfit that like no one's ever gonna wear or buy, or it's just not for them.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I recently on your Instagram on Blue and Green Denver, I saw that like you guys had your staff picks and everyone kind of had their varied brands that they liked. And like you said, no one was just head to toe one brand. And you're right. There's something that feels more realistic when you can actually like that's where real style and real taste comes in, where you can blend together different pieces and make it all seem like a cohesive scoop, right? And that's really special. I wanted to ask you too, white mountain research. You mentioned some other brands as well. What is there a product or a brand that does better in Denver, or that's just stocked differently in Denver compared to New York? Obviously, Capital seems to be reigning supreme in New York, but like, is the Denver market like how are you kind of like assessing what's working there? Obviously, it's a more outdoorsy, more gorpy, more go outside, do things kind of marketplace. It seems like those things are kind of becoming more prominent, or is that not the case? Or it seems like they are.
No, I mean, like I said, I would say the Denver store is more heavy in denim
Okay, interesting.
than the New York store. Now, the New York store has a lot more brands.
Yeah,
Okay, we don't have as many brands. So what we're trying to do is go really deep with brands.
got it.
As a shopper, I love when a store, has, hey, we got the new samurai drop, and there's like 20 pieces, like 5 flannels, 3 new
Right.
jeans, a jacket, a couple of t-shirts. There's just so much to get versus, hey, we just got our new samurai drop. It's 1 jean and one flannel that happens to be the colors you don't like. That's kind of like a turnoff. So we're really going heavy with the denim brands here. I
Yeah.
would say we're going heavier with them than New York by far.
Yeah.
But we're also 2.5 months old versus 17 years.
Correct.
We've sold Oni Secret Denim in New York, for 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Okay, we've had 25 restocks. Like everyone in New York has Oni Secret Denim,
Mm.
whereas they've just landed in Denver. People
Yeah.
here are just kind of learning about that. So like I need more Oni Secret Denim here
Mm.
than we do in New York, for example, or things like that. It's just, and we're still trying to discover this market, try to figure out like what are people wearing, what colors do they like, what brands do they like more. I mean, a lot of
Right.
that we're still trying to determine, but we're really trying to go heavy with denim here,
Yeah.
with the denim brands, because like, and outerwear is another thing that's very important to us here, because Denver is a perfect climate for jeans and outerwear. I mean,
Yep.
whether it's the dead of winter and you're wearing 25-ounce denim with like the heaviest down coat, or it's the middle of the summer and it's like you got lightweight jeans and it's nighttime and you could always wear. I mean, in the middle of July, you can wear jackets at night in Denver.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
the perfect climate for it. And so, like, I think, I just think these brands are perfect for here. We just, as we just got to get out there more. I
Yeah.
think as more folks discover us and stop by and see these brands in person and try them on, like, like I said, I've seen it with Mountain Research already in the short time we're here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for
so
sure. And you're right. I mean, Denver does have a true four seasons, and it's a bit. I've been noticing from moving from Colorado now, moving living in New York, like the temperature, how temperature changes in Denver from day to night is pretty dramatic, right? Once the sun goes down, it starts getting cold, even in the spring and sometimes in the middle of summer as well. It can be 90, 80 degrees and then drop down to 60, 50, high 50s, 59 degrees, right? So and that's like you said, it's super conducive to being able to actually wear clothes that allow for a bit more layering or allow for a bit more stylization, which it seems like from kind of how you've really painted this picture is something that's important for not only the customers at Blue and Green, but just for the entire Denver metro, Colorado metro area to understand and kind of and be like make sure that they're aware that, hey, Blue and Green, we can offer some solace on this topic for sure. um it's been so we've been it's been great to be able to talk to you for the last hour or so. I know that I told you that this thing was gonna run an hour or so. Hopefully, if you have any other time constraints or anything like that, I can wrap it up. But I have just a few more questions here.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Yeah, you've been a fantastic guest. You've honestly killed it. I don't know why you were or I were nervous at all. This has been great. I think you kind of answered some of these questions already, but I'm curious to know myself too. Just again, maybe hear it succinctly. You know, opening up a second store is no small endeavor, right? New York City, from my estimate, is one of the, if not the most important cultural city in the entire United States. One of the most important cultural cities in the entire world. Debatably, I call it the greatest city in the world. Obviously, I have some bias, but I believe that full heartedly. That's why I decided to live here. But when I think about my hometown, my home city, Denver, it's a place that I've always felt like was the US, one of the US's best kept secrets, right? Where people, they come, they understand the skiing, they understand it's a beautiful place. They understand Aspen, like literally the amount of times I say I'm from Colorado and they ask me from Aspen and they're like, oh, and then the conversation kind of just dies right there. It happens a lot in Denver, I mean, in New York, excuse me. But I want to know, from a strategic, just kind of emotional, whatever it's strategic or emotional, why did you decide to open up shop Blue and Green in Denver? What went behind that decision?
It's a question I get asked every day.
Yep. I
Literally every
know.
day, at least one customer asks that question. And the answer, um, there are a few factors that contributed to us opening a second location in Denver. But as time has gone on, what has really kind of sort of emerged as the leading reason is we wanted to be in a market that would really appreciate and value us. A market that doesn't have something like a Blue and Green in it, where people are coming in for the first time and seeing a lot of these brands. Like that was important to us. You know, uh,
Mm,
you go into New York, you got so many stores there. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong, the customers in New York are great, but they don't come in and they're not like people come into this Denver store and their jaw drops. Like they are just like, I've never seen this before. Like I've never seen this brand. I've never tried this on. Like they're in shock. Like they're in there for like an hour. They're like, can I just try this on? Like, even if it's something they don't want, because they've never seen it. And like that means everything to me. Like being in a market, in a region, in a part of the country that's just often overlooked. It's like you said, best kept secret. Denver is a tremendous city. You got all four sports teams here. You got a
mm,
huge population. There's a lot of money. So people are very fashion forward. Like they want more. Like all I've heard from people here is like they want better this and more of that. Like, why is it not here? And I think part of it is we're too close to the West Coast. And I feel like a lot of people, they feel like, well, if we're going to go that far, let's just go another, 1,000 miles and we'll just be in LA. I mean, in
yep.
fact, we were thinking LA for another Blue and Green, or San Francisco.
Yep.
Those seemed like the obvious two choices because all the stores from there have come to New York. So maybe we should just go there. We've had people from LA come into New York, into the Denver store, upset. Oh, why didn't you come down? Why did you choose here? But I just, it's like I feel like I'm really building something here. Like
Correct.
like that word community gets thrown around a lot. It's no joke at Blue and Green. We are a community. Like we really want to build a network of people. And when I say people, customers, local small business owners, like I just want to partner and promote everyone around me. I
Mm,
want them to do the same for us. Like we are really about the community. This store is not about the online world. The store is not about Instagram. This is not about a website. This is about the people that are in Colorado, in this area. We've had people from Salt Lake. We've had people from all over come here.
yeah.
That's what this store is for. I had a guy who came in here from New York who's never been in the New York store because he lives in Washington Heights and it's just not easy to get to Soho from there. But he's in Denver for a wedding, and the hotel and is right near Blue and Green, and so he came in here.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about. Like it's
Yep.
it's all about these people that come into my store every day and it's like their first time seeing all this stuff. That means the world to me. I mean, there aren't look. I mean, we've only been open a little over 2 months, but there haven't been a ton of really savvy shoppers that come in that know all the talk, that know all the brands, that know all the fits. Like you get that a lot in New York. You get
Yeah.
plenty of people that come in and they teach you.
Mm.
You hear about this brand, you see this one's doing this collaboration, and you're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Here, we're the educators. We're
Yeah.
constantly educating people, and I like that. That's how I got it. That's how I went from being a customer to now a co-owner.
Right.
I went into Blue and Green, and they took the time to educate me. That also built loyalty. I mean, like I would never ever shop at any other place because of what Blue and Green did for me. Even though I could get stuff cheaper, even though I can get stuff just as fast, Blue and Green was more to me than just a store and a business, and that's I wanted to support that. It was really important to me, and so
Right.
I really am happy to be here for the people of Denver. It really means a lot. Like I feel like we've got a great customer base here. We're starting a new like revolution of denim heads here. I mean, the number of people who have never bought a pair of Japanese denim who
Yeah.
have in the last 2 months. It's unbelievable. And the amount of people who have come in and bought a pair and then come back within a week to buy their second pair. And that was me. When I went into Blue and Green, I bought a pair of Samurai, the 5000 VX straight leg indigo. I loved
Mm.
it. I came back a week later, bought it in a black. Then I came back and bought the 710. It's just how it is. It's like
Right.
an obsession, like anything else.
Yeah.
And so I like I said, I just the more and more I like I said, that it becomes more cemented every day when people come in and just thank you. They just say thank you. So honored you choose Denver. This means the world. Finally, I have a store I can come into and
That's the way
try
I
stuff
felt.
on.
That's the
And
way
and,
I
and,
felt.
and it's hard. It's funny because people like you can tell they're not used to it. Like they come in and they're like, well, usually I'm a size this or usually I'm a size that. I'm like, my man, try them all on. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to guess.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So like, because I get people will be like, I'm a 33. I give them a 33 and I give them a 34. No, just try them both on. Like, don't, like,
Yeah.
like that's
That's
the
exactly
beauty
the
of it.
experience you had with me too. I mean, even myself, I still put myself in the position of someone who's constantly learning. Like I never try to posture and pretend that I'm, because I have the audience that I have, that I also should not or prevent myself from learn from the experts, learn from the people who obviously have been doing it for dozens of years past my own age, past my own experience. So I love the fact that you guys offer that in my home state, in the city of Denver. I've told you that several times myself because it's true. It means a ton. As someone who's always grown up in a place where it just felt limited, I felt like the only way I could access a bit of the coolness of what the fashion world has to offer comes through the screen on my phone.
Right.
To have something that's in real life, I mean, even still, my jaw drops, and it's fun to hear you say people are coming in and having that experience, and it's fun to even a smidgen feel like I'm a part of it. A smidgen feel like, okay, like I also am experiencing that for myself as well. And I love the fact that, you mentioned community. Obviously, community is a word that gets thrown around, but you mentioned community, and you told me, and we haven't even mentioned it yet, but like some of the art that's actually decorates the store is done by a local graffiti artist in Denver. Like things like that are like Easter eggs for what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So for example, I'm glad you brought that up. Two things. The sign. Okay. Our neon sign in the window. I mean, you've been to the New York store. I always love that blue and green
So fire.
neon sign. I think it's great. But so I wanted to bring that to Denver, but I wanted to kind of make it our own thing, so in the New York one, we have the number 8 in there for 8 Green Street. So obviously we're not going to have the 8 for here. So I decided to take it out and I put the logo for the Colorado State Sea
Yep.
in there in the blue. And it makes it a real Denver thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like I didn't want to be like, pushy New Yorker coming in. I'm bringing everything's going to be New York or in Denver.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give off that kind of vibe.
Smart move in my opinion.
And
Yeah.
let me tell you, a lot of people, a lot of natives, really acknowledge that
Yeah.
I got the Colorado Sea in there.
Yep. I
So,
noticed that right away. I was like, smart freaking move.
and you talked about the mural. One of my closest friends is a guy Trap,
Yeah.
and he designed the patchwork that's on our original jeans.
Mm.
And so when I was doing the store, I mean, I said to him, I'd love that, a mural of that patch on the wall, and I'd love for you to do a few other things. He's like, absolutely, of course, he's family. Um, but I said to him, I also, it's really important that I have local representation. Do you know any local graph writers, who would be down to contribute? And he introduced me to Jolt,
Yep.
who
Joel.
anyone who knows anything about the Denver art scene knows
Yep.
Jolt,
Yep.
and so the amount of responses I've gotten just from having a Jolt, piece in my dressing room, the amount of people that have come in and take selfies in there,
Yeah.
so I wanted to bring some of that New York with me, but also blend it with some Denver vibes, because especially Rhino. I feel like Rhino, when I looked all over Denver for a spot for the store, and Rhino gave off a New York vibe to me.
Hmm.
It could have been like a neighborhood in Brooklyn.
Yep.
A lot of brick, a lot of graffiti, a lot of development, a lot of
Hmm.
hipsters walking around.
Yep.
Source Hotel. It just
Yep.
kind of gave off, that kind of vibe. That's why I like that area. And look, I'm a New Yorker. We're New Yorkers. Blue and Green is a New York store. New York's always going to be a part of who we are, but we're not in New York. We're
Yeah.
in Denver, and we're trying to build our own community here. So it's like, we want to take, little parts of that and blend it in.
Of course, that's all you can do, right? You have to take what works from the past, take what works from a different region of the country, and obviously make sure the part of the country you're going to is also being represented. And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job at that. It's funny. I used to work before I was, drew what it do on YouTube and all. I used to work literally a block away, a street away, right on the corner of like the Zeppelin station. I used to work right there, interning, and now to see, Blue and Green is right around the corner from there. It means a lot. You have no idea. It really means a lot to me.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I want to close it off with like three kind of like rapid fire, like more specific to you and your taste in denim. You
Okay.
talked about you bought the samurai. Also, with samurai, I have a pair of samurais as well. The naming conventions of samurais, I can't remember a single. I don't know how you remember the names, because it's like 4,000 AXZ dash one, and I know it all means something. I'm kind of a little bit poking fun at it, but I have to always read the description of the samurai names. But that's here neither here nor there. What's your most worn pair of Japanese denim?
Well, an old pair of Somme,
So
the O
May.
one the 013. They're a
Mm,
brand that kind of fell out a little bit. They're kind of trying to make a comeback. They were a phenomenal brand, SOMET. I wore a pair of those jeans until they evaporated. I mean, it's the
mm,
only pair of jeans I've ever worn to where I had to get repairs done and all that, because I love jeans. I like to wear a lot of jeans. I'm not the guy who invests, a year or two into one jean and just demolishes it. I wear
right.
a lot of different jeans, but that one pair of Some's I beat to hell.
Mm,
In terms of current rotation, I'm a little biased to our original jeans. We dropped original Gene in 2018 and then another one in 2019.
mm.
That's the one that Trap did the artwork on the patch.
Yep.
I love
Yep.
That's one of my favorite jeans. And some of the jeans we did for our 15th anniversary, the double indigo collaboration with Oni is a really unique gene.
Mm.
And then we did the purple face AI indigo pure blue collaboration, which was
Oh wow.
beyond unique. So I'm a little bit biased towards the things that we've had
You
a hand
created.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they all hold a special place in your heart. I mean, they have to all be different, because they're all 5 pocket jeans. So if you're buying like 6, 7, 10 different pairs, well, there's got to be something different about them. The
Mm,
weight, the hardware, the branding, the
yeah.
pocket shape, the pocket depth, the
Yeah.
color of the indigo, like whether it's
Exactly.
nep or something. There's so many factors, and like depending on what look I'm going for that day, that different pair of jeans might be my favorite, any day. So it's
Yeah.
hard to, yeah.
No, that's cool. I like how you said that, you're not someone who, because for me, the way of I've kind of been introduced is that it feels like the most real or the most authentic denim heads are the guys or girls who they buy their pair of jeans and they run through it like, they have to destroy it. It has to be kind of foaming at the knee, and there has to be crotch blowouts, and you have to get it repaired, and you have to have all this fading going on. And it makes me happy to hear you say that okay, like you don't necessarily have to go that route. Obviously, you want to take care of your pants. You want to wear it as much as possible. And for a lot of people, you know, from a standpoint of cost, affordability, they're only able to buy one pair of these jeans every 5 years, whatever it is, and that's going to become their pair. And so, but it's like I said, it's good to hear that you yourself enjoy sampling different flavors of denim because that's what I like doing as well, right? Like for me, like when I started getting into selvage denim, raw denim, selvage denim, I don't know why I said it like that, but um like for me, the neppiness of a fabric was like something that was just so interesting. And it still is really interesting for me. So like when I came to the store when it was just the day before it opened in Denver, I was keen on the Oni Secret Super Rough denim, right? And I was like, this is just so freaking cool. Like how you were talking about how people obviously gravitate to that because the fabric is so interesting. And I was that same exact way, like very interested in how like this fabric is. It's rough, but like you kept telling me, and everyone keeps telling me, like it softens up. And I've had the same experience with something like the sugarcane Okinawas. And it's just like you said, you hit the head on its nail. I'm kind of reiterating what you're talking about, but it's a whole world that once you begin to dip your toe into it, at least from my wheelhouse of interest, it becomes really, really cool because it's all about the details is what makes each pair different. And you can talk about those details and there's a whole different experience that you get, and everyone's body and temperature and climate and where they're living at and how they're wearing the jeans affects
Yep.
all these foundations. And we didn't even we didn't even talk about washing or not washing and all the whole hoopla about that whole side of things. But yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful world. I want to end off on one last question. Just kind of an inquisitive question again, curiosity based question coming from me. Is there any label that you think that maybe even blue and green carries, that a label that you think doesn't get the credit that it deserves? Something that's kind of in the shadows, under the radar a little bit, that probably should be getting a bit more attention, but doesn't because for whatever reason it's just not right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking denim brands, I'd put Resolute on the top of that list. I think Resolute makes some of the most perfect, easy to wear, best fitting jeans out there.
Hmm.
But no one's ever really heard of Resolute. It's not a name that brings you into blue and green. It doesn't have the cachet
Right.
of Oni or Pure Blue or Samurai. He doesn't muck around with all these crazy fabrics. He has pretty much the same fabric in a variety of different cuts.
Right.
He has every inseam length imaginable. His sort of philosophy is that he can fit you in the most perfect jeans you'll ever wear. And like there have been a handful of people who I've fitted with them and they're just blown away. They end up getting them.
Yeah.
Never heard of them before. Not something they planned to get. They didn't come in looking for it, but that's what they left with.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not slubby, it's not crazy looking, it's not going to grab a lot of attention, but man, they just fit really well. And if you
Mm.
want just a really perfect, clean jean, I mean, that's it. And they're the most like diverse jean in the world. Like you can
Mm.
make a Resolute jean look as street as you want or as formal as you want.
Mm.
It's really that incredible of a jean. And I
Nice.
think, but I think part of the problem is like he just doesn't he doesn't really branch out with all these different fabrics or whatever. He's got the same fabric, a handful of fits. His favorite thing, the designer who he was the founder of Denim many years ago.
Oh
He
wow.
what he loves to do is travel around and do pop-up shops. He wants to fit people, like personally. So he'll come to your store, he'll bring a trunk of clothes and you set up appointments and people come in and he has like a guarantee he will fit you in the most perfect jean.
Damn.
I like one of his most famous fits is the 710,
Mm.
and he offers it in everywhere from a 30 to like a 38-inch inseam. So you can get
Jesus.
like a 28 waist with like a 36 inseam if you want. He literally creates the perfect
Jeez.
jean for every silhouette. Like that's what his whole philosophy is. Like I can find the perfect jean to fit you.
Amazing.
And like I said, most of the people that try it on, they walk away kind of feeling that way. But
Yeah.
again, because he doesn't really branch out and do all these new and interesting, it's always it's like a restock. And people, in this in retail in general, people are always looking new arrivals, right? Like they always just want to see what's new. what's the flavor of the week? What's the hottest new thing? And when you see something's go restock or whatever, it's like, I don't care. Oh, the new this, let me go look at that.
Mm,
Like that's people are always drawn to what's new, which is why I always tell people don't always focus like with like Instagram and your news. Don't always focus on new releases because all you're doing is hyping up one thing and then the next week you're just hyping up something else. And what does
yeah.
that say about the previous week's stuff that you were just hyping? You got to, all this stuff is great and it's great forever. So you should constantly be promoting it or talking about it or reminding people about it.
Yeah.
So just because something's a restock, doesn't mean it should just be kind of like, we just got to restock a Resolute. Like we should be talking about what makes them such a perfect jean.
Yeah. And I think that's a absolute perfect way to kind of round off this episode, because you're right. The denim that comes from brands like Resolute, the denim that obviously that's being stocked in places like Blue and Green, like it is a lot of times reissued denim from a later year that's done better, that's done with more clarity, done with better fabrics, better materials, better intentionality. And so it's just another layer to why, if you're curious about this world, if you're curious about things like this, checking out brands, retailers like Blue and Green, at Blue and Green, in Denver or in New York, is an absolute great place to start. I know for me, I'm going to be doing my homework on Resolute, Somme, and then WSWESC denim. I'm going to be just,
We are the superlative conspiracy.
yeah, I'm going to be just looking that up for the next like 2 weeks here, just to figure that out. And it's been, Geoffrey, it's been great having you on the podcast. I'm a bit rusty with interviewing, but hopefully I wasn't too bad of a host, and you were a fantastic guest. I truly appreciate your time and all the insight you gave about the store in Denver and kind of your history, your lineage. Yeah, I'm choking up here. I don't know why.
No, thanks, Drew. I appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
We're really grateful for everything you've done to help get this Denver store off the ground. A lot of people have come in and said they heard about us from the video you shot, and
Wow.
that means the world to us. And you've done great things for the New York store that we appreciate. And you're great for the scene. I think the scene is really lucky to have people like you.
Thank you.
You provide a great outlet for like-minded individuals. You're very educational. You give everybody a platform. It's how it should be done. Like I said, you're part of the community. Because like everyone plays a role in this scene. Again, at the end of the day, I say it, we're still a very small fragment of the population.
Right.
This world of Japanese denim. It is, I mean, 45 of the 50 states in our union probably don't have a store that sell selvage denim.
Yep.
We're not that big of a community. So that's why, again, maybe I'm a little gullible or naive, but that's why I just think we should all be like working together and supporting each other and helping each other out. Again, I mentioned Berkeley Supply, the Standard and Strange, their Santa Fe location.
Yep.
They've been tremendously supportive of us and sending people up here and reposting stuff on their Instagram page, because I think they feel a little bit like us. They're in a random market. Why Santa Fe? Like, why would you go there? Why Denver? So I think they kind of, see a little bit of themselves in us. And so they're trying to help get us, off the ground. And yeah, so it's great. It's great to have people like that. And
for sure. Last thing I'll ask is if you want to just tell people where they can find more out about find out more about Blue and Green, whether it's Instagrams, websites, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's the Blue and Green Soho is the New York store Instagram. Blue and Green Denver is the Denver Instagram, and blueandgreensoho.com is the website. Right now, just the New York store is featured on the website, but we're planning, once we roll into January, we're going to have the Denver store included on the New York website. So that
I was curious
that way,
that.
all the clothing, because again, we carry different brands from each other, and even the brands we carry that are like I'm pretty sure the New York store's Mountain Research order is very different from our Mountain Research order, but it should all be available on the site. Obviously, we can't make that happen right now, but moving forward, that's definitely going to be a goal.
For sure. Thank you so much, Geoffrey. I appreciate your time. Like I said,
I appreciate you.